Hey YouTube, Serac here, and today I'm bringing my True Draco deck profile to show you. This deck's really cheap because you don't need an extra deck. So, if you like floodgatey, control-y types of decks, you want to make your opponents hate you, or you really just want to return to Monkey, this might be the deck for you. So, let's get straight into the profile. We have 3 copies of Ignis Heat. Now, Ignis Heat, all the True Dracos can be tribute summoned by tributing a continuous spell or trap, and all the specific True Draco spells and traps have the ability to give you extra normal summons for tribute summons. So that's how you make your board presence in this deck. And then they all do something else when your opponent activates a card or effect, and Ignis Heat searches out continuous spell cards. We then have 2 copies of Majesty Maiden, the True Draco caster, and Majesty Maiden, again, very similar to Ignis Heat, but searches out True Draco or True King cards. And then finally, we have 1 copy of Dynamite Knight. And we would run more of this, but it's currently at 1. It could really come back, but Konami's very wary of bringing back True Draco too much. This is how you search your traps, which are where you get a lot of your interruption, your ability to tribute on your opponent's turn, and so on. We then have 3 copies of Inspector Border. Now, Inspector Border basically just reads, your opponent can't play Yu-Gi-Oh! And it's a normal summonable body with 2k attack. So, that really helps you deal with anything that your opponent can throw at you. So, if neither player can activate monster effects unless the number of monster effects that player has previously activated is less than the number of monster card types currently on the field. So, basically, it really limits the amount your opponent can do in an individual turn. So that's it for the monsters. We run a very low monster lineup. Other options would be you could bump up the Majesty Maidens to 3, or you could run copies of Amano Iwato instead of, or as well as Inspector Border. But this is what I've gone with for this deck. We then have 3 copies of True Draco Heritage. Where the skill of True Draco lies, and I use that term very loosely, although some people will argue that this deck does require skill, is manipulating your draws with True Draco Heritage so you get the most value out of it, but can still play. So, True Draco Heritage allows you to draw cards during your main phase equal to the number of True Draco and True King card types sent to the graveyard that turn. And then, during your main phase, immediately after this effect resolves, tribute 1 True Draco or True King monster face up. And then all the spells and traps have the little tag on the end. This card is sent from the field to the graveyard. You can target 1, in this case, spell or trap. In the trap card's case, it's monsters, card on the field, and destroy it. We then run 3 copies of Disciples of the True Draco Phoenix. This is your pot of avarice for the deck. It's how you recycle your monsters, your spells, your traps, because obviously you're continually tributing them off, so you need to go through them. Yes, shuffle 3 into the deck, immediately draw a card, and then it has the same effect as True Draco Heritage for the tribute summons and the destroying back row. We then run 1 copy of Dragonic Diagram because it's at 1. We wish we could run more copies of this, but it's at 1, and again, Konami doesn't like True Draco. It gives you 300 attack and defense. It allows you to protect your monsters from battle, although that's less relevant, and it searches any card in your deck, essentially. And it allows you to destroy your spells and traps. If you need pops, you can destroy cards in your hand if you don't need them, or you need extra stuff for shuffling back into the deck with Disciples, and so on. We then run 2 copies of Pot of Duality. You could add a 3rd one here, but I only have 2 at the moment. We don't special summon, so this is any of the top 3 cards in our deck. with no downside. It's really, really good. Again, we have one copy of Card Demise. Again, it's at 1. We run a very low monster count. We can get multiple normal summons in a turn, so we can set our entire hand, activate Card of Demise, draw another 3 cards, use our spells and our monsters and so on, and then go off from there. Again, the downside is we can't special summon, we don't mind. And similarly, discarding our hand isn't too bad when we have lots of ways to recycle it with cards like Disciples. We then have 1 terraforming because we need to search Dragonic Diagram, and in a pinch we can also use the terraforming to search Mystic Mine. We can play Mystic Mine in this deck. We only need to play 1 because we can out it at any point. We don't really mind if we can draw it. We're usually getting it from the deck with Metaverse or Terraforming if we really, really need it, because most of the time we're going for Dragonic Diagram instead. But we can out this really, really easy. It doesn't count as one of our monster effects, so we just tribute over a spell card we control and immediately pop the Mystic Mine if we need to push for damage. So that's the spell lineup. Now on to the traps. We have 3 True King's Return, now free from the shackles of the ban list. Again, all the traps have that if this card is sent from the spell and trap zone to the graveyard, target 1 monster on the field, destroy it. Cannot activate the following effects of True King's Return in the same chain. So this allows you to target 1 True Draco or True King monster in your graveyard and special summon it, but you can only cannot special summon monsters for the rest of the turn. This is how you build your board back in your opponent's turn. Gives you extra ways of... It gives you extra True Draco, True King effects for when you're tributing, and so on. And then this is how you tribute summon in your opponent's turn with this card. We then have 3 copies of True Draco Apocalypse. This is our out to Dragoon, because it allows us to halve the attack and defense of every other monster on the field by destroying a True Draco card we control. And again, it allows us to then use our True Draco, True King spells and traps again to destroy cards our opponents control from there. So this is the way we out really problematic towers type boss monsters that don't have battle protection. And then it has the normal True Draco, True King effect to allow us to tribute summon and to destroy something when it's sent from to the graveyard. We then play 3 copies of the Monarch's Erupt. This is a one-sided skill drain that we don't care about our monster effects nearly as much as our opponent, who's comboing off, does. We usually control a tribute summoned monster, and this is why we don't play an extra deck. We then play 3 copies of There Can Be Only One. We're quite happy to just sit on a copy of Dynamite Knight or Ignis Heat, whilst our opponent sits on something much smaller. Essentially, this deck wins by the fact that our monsters are generally bigger than most of what the opponent can put out easily, whilst under floodgate type effects. So if we have a diagram, we just sit on a 2800 body, and they struggle to get over it. And we're constantly drawing cards and getting rid of cards they control. We have 3 copies of Solemn Judgment. Sometimes you just have to say no. Card is self-explanatory. It's a really, really good card. It stops essentially anything and is really, really strong. We have 2 copies of Crackdown. Again, sometimes we need to just steal something our opponent controls. Again, this can be used as a combo interrupt. We can then tribute over it, or we can tribute off the Crackdown if we can now get over that monster. Maybe it's a very tight choke point of their combo. Great, now we just steal their monster, tribute over it, done. And finally, we have one copy of Metaverse. This card allows us to activate Mystic Mine in our opponent's turn and also search his diagram if we need it. That's the main reason we're playing it, just to suddenly shut down our opponent's combo when they've overcommitted to the board. They've suddenly put 4 monsters on the board, we flip the Metaverse, and now they're locked under Mystic Mine. And then finally, we have one copy of Imperial Order. It negates spells effects on the field, so if we tribute our continuous spells, they still get to blow stuff up. And we don't mind too much about losing our spell effects because we can just tribute over the Imperial Order when we need to. So that's the deck. It's really, really cheap because it doesn't require an extra deck, but it might make people hate playing against you. I hope you enjoyed that deck profile. I will be back with more deck profiles in the coming few weeks, and I will see you again soon. Please like, subscribe, so on. Share it with anyone who you would like to get into Yu-Gi-Oh! Bye.